The best leaders I've ever been around have one thing in common. They all have the humility to admit that they cannot do it alone. The best leaders in life admit one thing: they need help. They have blind spots and they deeply need wise counsel. What's up, fam? It's your boy JJ. This is a mini Mansode Friday. We are in season 13, hot takes. You guys know we are stirring the pot, but hopefully out of an edifying, encouraging, let's just think about this from another angle perspective. There's nothing in me that wants to get on these episodes, stir the pot, make people upset. And really what it comes down to is when I challenge men specifically, the tough part about doing it on Instagram or short form media where there's only 15 seconds or 25 seconds is there's no background and there's no context, which is this. All I think about is you guys, specifically single men. Like, I'm obsessed with serving and encouraging and loving single men. I don't think there's enough people in this world who are focused on just exclusively encouraging, loving, building up, and edifying single men. I think it's so easy to criticize them, to judge them, to point out what they're doing wrong, and then provide no solutions, no recommendations. Like, I really think culture's favorite punching bag is single men. Like, it's men in general, and then single men specifically, 20 to 30 years old, I just feel like have a huge crosshair on their back. So when we talk about something like physical attraction, and I'm coming in there and I'm challenging a man to question his physical attraction and why, I only do that because I want you to have a fulfilled, godly, awesome, healthy, wonderful marriage with an amazing woman who you find attractive, but more importantly, loves God. Like, that is my top priority. My biggest wish for any single guy who wants to get married is that. So in today's episode, when I say something like hot take, boyfriends should not spiritually lead their girlfriends. Whoa. What do we mean here? Okay. And this is a really fun episode because I'm so passionate about it. I love to see godly couples, godly relationships, like with a ultimate focus of not what can you provide for me, but how can we work together and glorify God? Like, I think that is a wonderful equation. However, just like what we do in Christian culture sometimes, whether we over spiritualize something or because we're hyper intentional, we have a way of letting things get out of hand in the name of hyper intentionality. What do I mean by that? Well, we'll find out in just a second. Before we get there, two quick things: what I'm loving and in my DMs. What I'm loving, to be honest, I listen to a lot of different teachers, but there's just something about the way Francis Chan teaches in the sense of number one, he is so clear on this. Here's what I prayed before I spoke to you guys. I was walking in the park this morning. I was walking and praying this week, and I was just honestly asking God, what should I teach on this Sunday? What should I teach on? And just listening. I love that because I think of Paul. When I read a lot of the New Testament and Paul's letters to the Corinthians, the church in Ephesus, I love how the first chapter is always just like, I think about you guys and pray about you guys all the time. Here's what I feel like God is saying to me to speak to you all. Let me remove everything about myself and let me just simply try to reflect and repeat what I think that God is saying to me to say to you guys. Now, I love that because Francis Chan will come up there and he's not trying to intellectually impress people. He's not trying to he'll literally talk about, like, on stage, I hate being up here because even as I talk, I can feel like poison of the platform seeping in, thoughts on, do people like me? Are they impressed by me? Will people be affected by this message? And he goes, man, forget about all that. God, help me to forget about all that. He had a great sermon on humility. It was about 5 or 10 years ago. Like, I've never thought about humility in the sense that he teaches it. And I think it is probably the one character trait and quality when taught well, that is probably the most defining. Like, here's a good example. When we put ourselves in comparison to the sovereign God of the universe, like we are a speck of dust compared to this infinite, amazing, words can't even begin to describe the Alpha and the Omega, the presence of God. And we're just this infinitely small speck of dust. Well, it's out of humility where I see the greatness of God and I recognize how small I am in that sense. And I think that's an aspect of humility. Myself compared to God is so humbling. It's so humbling. I think about Isaiah and the presence of God where he was undone in humility, in the awe of God. He had another teaching that I was listening to called The Power of the Quiet Life. I think if you are a leader with any kind of current platform underneath you and desire to have platform in your future and teaching, it is one of the best sermons. I think that should be mandatory for anyone who wants to have any quote aspect of influence in their life. And in the same way, like, if I'm being honest, there's nothing about me that wants to come on these episodes and hear myself talk. There's nothing about me that wants to see. By the way, you guys sent amazing messages after last week's episode. Super encouraging. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, but I genuinely mean it. Like, I fight so hard and I seriously straight to the cross. There's nothing about me that wants to come on here and really just get a good job. That was so impressive. That was so awesome. There's just nothing about me that wants to get on here for myself. Really, the primary reason why I want to get on here is just to serve single men and love single men and really provide you guys with something I wish I would have had as a single man. That is why I'm here. And I just don't want to be on platform for platform's sake. I don't want to grow Heart of Dating's podcast to massive numbers because we want the influence. I just genuinely want to steward exactly what God has in front of us. Not a single person more, not a single person less. But most importantly, like, I don't want to post and talk about my relationship with God if it's not genuine and authentic. Here's a good example. Someone asked me the other day, I don't feel comfortable if I do a really nice date night with Kate of capturing it, setting it to her social media girl and having a really nice, awesome reel, encouraging men to date their women well with intention, with romanticism, with really kind of loving their women as the woman wants to be loved. If I'm not doing that 10 out of 10 times, meaning I just think it's inauthentic and deceitful for me to create some piece of content if 90% of my time in my life, I'm not genuinely doing it routinely and consistently. So I'm not going to do a really nice date for Kate and capture it and then post it to encourage you guys and challenge men if I'm not doing that 9 out of 10 times, alongside that single time. So it's the same way with teaching. Like, I never want to be in a position of teaching where if my quiet life, my quiet time, my prayer life is not 90% of it. And you guys are just getting a snapshot. And really, that's what it is. So I hope that's helpful. Francis Chan doubles down on both of those things. Great talks. That's what I'm loving lately. And in my DMs, here's a great question. You guys have been sending me a lot more questions lately. They are so awesome. I love the fact that you guys have, quote, the humility to just hop on Instagram, send a DM saying, I'm struggling with this. What do you think about that? Like, that takes a lot of courage to do. And I think as men, it just takes a lot of gumption to say, I need help. Let me just DM somebody and ask. And I hope Heart of Dating and myself are like a good anonymous resource that you can ask any question and it gets answered for you and it gets answered for other guys. And here's a good example. What's up, JJ? I just recently got plugged in at this church here in this city. I'm not going to reveal the church or the city just to keep this guy anonymous. He says, I'm just curious what would be the best way to, number one, meet and get to know girls, but also not come across as obviously trying to talk to every girl there, coming across as a player and being weird, if that makes sense. I don't want to build myself and have the wrong reputation from the beginning. There's also a young adult group on Fridays that I can go to, and there's a lot of cute girls there, but also in the new bubble where people don't really know me yet. So lots of opportunity to get to know girls, lots of opportunity to pursue girls, but he's new. What do I do? Such a good question. My rule of thumb, if you're in a new city, a new community, a new church, and you're single is, dude, please give it 6 months. Like that, I don't know why. It's arbitrary, 3 months, 7 months. Like you can pick any of them. My favorite is just 6 months. Like just give it 6 months of just being single and not dating anybody. 6 months, and your top priority is this: building as rich and great as friendships as possible with both sexes. Guys and girls, attractive, unattractive, have a lot to offer you, have nothing to offer you. Just build as many great, deep, spiritually rich friendships as possible before you even consider dating anybody. And if it happens to be a girl that you end up dating, well, the best news for you is you have an amazing friendship foundation to go off the bat. I don't like to think about psychoanalyzing what other people might be thinking about you. How do I come across? Well, I don't want to be a player, but I do want to date this girl. Like for me, in the way I just encourage men is like, hey, let's not try to just guess what every single person in this group or this community thinks about you. Like, let's just not play that game. And let's just focus on really great things for your life, which is building new friendships, which is building a great community. And then after 6 months, if there's a girl, especially maybe one that you didn't even notice at first, who really sticks out to you, you love her character, you've really enjoyed seeing what you've seen so far, and you would just love to take her out on a date. Well, after 6 months, let's do that. Like, I think you have a ton of rapport. I think you have a ton of equity in the group. I think people know you're not a player because you didn't just come in there guns a-blazing, asking out every girl. Like, I love that. If you want to be, quote, strategic with it, I think you can just never go wrong focusing on building great friendships, building great relationships, building great community. And then after that, if something happens with a specific girl, then yes, absolutely, ask her out. More importantly, if it doesn't, lead to more dates in a relationship, leave her better than you found them. And then, dude, you're totally set up and good to ask out another girl, like maybe the next month or a couple months after that. But man, if you're like treating women as you should, like you should be able to call them up on your next date and ask them, hey, would you recommend me as a guy that you would date? And I would hope, because of the way that you treated them, that you honored them, they could say, yeah, even though it didn't work out between us, I would highly recommend you to one of my friends. Great character, great guy. Absolutely. Please go on a date with this dude. Like, that's how it should go down, and it can go down, but it's rare. And I didn't have that happen with me because I was not dating in an awesome way. Like I was kissing, I was making out, I was more interested in what I could get out of it for my pleasure than I was leaving a girl better than I found her. Okay, that's in my DMs. I hope that was helpful. Great question. I love the humility. Guys, please keep those questions coming in my DMs. I love serving you guys individually, and your questions are so helpful for other guys to listen to. Here's my hot take, okay? Mini Mansode Friday, season 13. Boyfriends should not spiritually lead their girlfriends. Whoa. Wait a minute. Did he really just go there? Did he really? Okay, so let's clarify. When I hear this question traditionally, what it kind of sounds like is this: should a dating relationship reflect the biblical, complementary, covenantal relationship of marriage? Like, should it be like a trial run of marriage? And my answer is no. Like, my answer is just simply no. And the challenge with that is the Bible really doesn't give a blueprint for dating. Like, we've covered this multiple times. Secular dating as we know it today in 2024, the year of our Lord 2024, it is 120 years old. It started off as a form of prostitution, right? Women did not have disposable income, but they started going to college and leaving the house for the first time. Men who had income and salaries and jobs and careers would basically say, hey, do you want to go on a date with me? We're going to go get a nice dinner. We're going to go see a movie. We're going to go dancing. And in return for that fun that they provided, then the woman paid him back in sex. And that was originally the first forms of secular dating as we know it today. And that word dating, okay? So the Bible doesn't give us, instead of that, this is what dating should look like. It doesn't. It gives us a lot of examples of arranged marriages. In biblical times, in ancient times, arranged marriage, the way it really worked is they wouldn't really meet each other until they were at the altar and got married. They wouldn't really see each other until they got married. So when we say, should a dating relationship reflect the complementary covenant relationship of marriage? Absolutely not. Like, these are two completely different relationships. Okay, one is a covenant, and one is one friend getting to know another friend in an evaluation process to see whether or not we should go into a relationship. And then when you're in a relationship, seeing whether or not you guys should get into a covenant and relationship. And I say that and I'm so straightforward and strong with it off the bat because of this. And I'll start here. I just personally, I know this is an anecdote, and you guys ask yourself this as well. And I'm only 29, have seen way too many couples playing marriage. And I see this in younger relationships, especially 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And I also see it in older relationships, like people who are 34, 38, 42, who just think like wisdom and the rules don't really apply to them anymore. Like both of them have this in common. And yes, what I'm basically saying is 22 to 34-year-olds do it perfectly. No. Okay. Everyone's prone to do it. I would just say those are two of maybe the age ranges I see it most profoundly. But this, like they're playing marriage, like having sleepovers, whether you're having sex or not, I don't really care. Okay. In the sense of like, I just think even sleepovers is playing marriage, spiritually acting as one, like one unit, that looks like this: emotionally and vulnerably. You guys are just getting like naked together. Like you guys are so deeply intertwined. I see way too many couples like depending and leaning on each other as if like you were already married. Like you guys are closer. You guys are relationally investing more time and energy exclusively into one another than you are into your mentors, into your friendships, into your church, into the body of Christ. Like you guys have already elevated one another. And I'm not saying you guys specifically. I'm seeing way too many couples elevate their girlfriend or their boyfriend as basically a spouse before there's even a ring on the finger and engagement, or like you guys are married. And that's just like, I just see way too many couples jumping in way too quickly, way too early, and kind of just skipping all of it. And they do it out of one word. We are supposed to be intentional. We're supposed to be intentional. And I get it. Like, I totally get it. But I guess what I also see like leading to this is this, like before that happens, I see two things. I see a lot of women looking for a man to lead them, like they are unable to do it themselves as a single woman. Like there's this attitude of women, and I'm not saying all women, I'm just saying some, that I've seen, like they are so looking forward to submitting and leading on a big, strong man to lead them, but it's almost like out of helplessness. And until they find that man, they're just kind of hanging out. Like they're not really leading themselves. They're not living out of that. It's so cliche, but if you read Proverbs 31 and look at the characteristics of the woman that they describe, she's a boss. Like she is not operating out of like I'm single and I'm doing it, but I need someone to lead me. Like I need a big, strong man to protect me and lead me. Like she's not waiting on anything. Okay. And then on the flip side, and I'm not saying every man, I'm seeing some. I see a lot of men looking forward to leading their wife and their families who are not even leading themselves well in singleness. I see a lot of single men pretending and thinking that they are ready to be a husband and a father who are not even leading themselves in singleness. And that for me just doesn't make sense. Like, let me put it this way. And this is me. This was me as a single for a lot of my time. What you're signing up for as a husband and a father is you are the priest, you are the protector, you are the pastor, and you are the provider in your marriage and your family. Does that sound like an easy job? Does that sound like something you just wake up, do devotional, and you just kind of happen to lead well? Like, no, it is the big leagues. Like it's a grind. It's deeply sanctifying. It's deeply challenging. I would say it's grueling at times just because of the massive responsibility you're signing up for. And you can't do it on your own. That's the other thing, is like you have to get really, really good at letting the Holy Spirit lead in your life, depending on other men, seeking help and guidance and wisdom and advice. And until you as a single man are leading yourself with excellence, you are not ready for the responsibility of relationship. And one of the reasons maybe you're not married yet is because you would destroy the opportunity to lead well because you are not ready for the responsibility of relationship. And that's all I'll say as far as what I see sometimes in the men. And I wish I'm glad as a 24-year-old I didn't get married because I was not ready. I was so immature. In a lot of ways, I was immature even up until the moment I met Kate. As I dated her, like I had to grow out of a lot of boyish ways until Kate said yes to marry me. And that was the best thing ever for me. Sometimes you got to be forged by the fire, but as much as possible, I would love for single men to forge themselves in singleness before they get to the trials of relationship and marriage. Like, I think that's the best thing you could ever do. And that takes a ton of proactive responsibility, foresight, and wisdom. And then the last thing I would say is spiritually lead. I see a lot of men spiritually lead because that's what they think will get the girl. I see a lot of men engage and try to spiritually lead because it's what they're supposed to do. And it's really good for locking down a girl, showing them spiritually how mature you are, leading them through a Bible study and praying, because that's going to really impress the girl. And that's going to lock her down. We want to spiritually lead because number one, we want to please God. And two, that's his commandment for you to do. Like, point blank, it has nothing to do with the approval of the girl. It has nothing to do with locking her down. It has nothing to do with impressing her or anyone else. We want to spiritually lead because this is God's command for you. The opportunity and the gift and responsibility of leading in the headship model. And that's a huge deal. So let's get back to the question, should boyfriends spiritually lead their girlfriends? Well, the answer is yes, they should lead in some ways. And really, they should lead in the same ways that they're leading in other relationships of their lives. But primarily, a boyfriend should lead his girlfriend by example. By example, like that is number one. And I would say, like, in relationship and dating, it's going to look different because it's not a reflection of covenant relationship and the headship model. And the headship model, the man, and this starts in Genesis from the time Adam is created. Adam was charged with discipleship, pastoring, providing, and protecting, and the responsibility of Eve and the family. Okay? That is not your duty in relationship. When you're in a dating relationship, you are not in charge of discipling, pastoring, providing, and protecting, and she is not, her well-being is not entirely your responsibility, okay? But I see people kind of adopt that in relationship. So they think marriage and covenant, this is my role and responsibility. It would make total sense that relationship and dating should reflect those same things. It's like a trial run. That's not the case, okay? Covenant relationship, saying I do at the altar before God and a sovereign union before him and two becoming one it's another universe of what dating and relationships is, okay? So do we just criticize JJ? Do we just say no and leave it at that? Absolutely not. We have to provide some kind of framework. This is just simply what I thought of as I prayed about this, as I want to encourage men. This is not an end-all be-all list. I think you guys should absolutely consult the wisest, most spiritual, godly men in your life. I think you should talk about this amongst your brothers, like the guys who are dating alongside with you, see what they're doing, and listen and look for what is really mature. And I would just say, maybe start here. You guys can listen together with this. You should be spiritually leading your girlfriend in these ways. Number one, encouraging her and edifying her. I love this. Privately pray for her. I love this idea. Privately pray for her. If you're concerned about her, if you have wishes for her, if you have desires for her, privately pray for her and offer that up to God. God, would you please encourage Kate? Would you please show her your unconditional love for her and her time right now? Would you please give her great friendships? Please give her great female friendships where they can be vulnerable. Please, Holy Spirit, speak to her. Give her ears to listen, a sobriety to your voice. I love supplementing a relationship in private prayer for them. Like, as much as it is for them, ironically, it is the best skill you could ever have for yourself, which is basically releasing change in their life to God. Releasing change in their life to God. I love this. Encourage and edify her by verbally speaking to her, speaking life into her. Speak life into her gifts. If she's amazing and wonderful with children, encourage her. Not with the twist of, you are so good with children. Wink. What if we had a huge family together? And romanticizing about parenting. Hey, you are so wonderful with children. I don't know why you're not serving in kids' church, but if you've ever thought about it, please just consider this me absolutely calling out the gold and the gifting in your life. You need to be working with children. That is a gift that God has blessed you with. And there are children who need to be around you because you are such a light and peaceful presence in their life. You have way too much of a gift here not to be engaging with children in some kind of capacity in your life. You are speaking life into her. I think another way to encourage and edify is to learn together. Learning together is a really, really amazing thing. Listening to her, that's a great way to encourage, edify, and love her well. in a relationship while you're dating. The irony of this is, even though I say that relationship and dating is not a reflection of covenantal marriage and union together, guess what? Those practices, private prayer, speaking life into them, learning together, listening together, those are all things that you do in marriage. If you guys get married, those are like fundamental things that you guys will continue to do together, and you get to do with her, which is encourage and edify her. Like, I could not think of a better skill for single men to learn as they relationally lead in dating, relationship, engagement, and marriage is those things. Number 2, you should be leading in this way spiritually. Pursuing her. Like, you are leading in this way. You're leading the pace, you're leading the conversations, the fun ones and the hard ones, and you're leading the direction. A good example of this is a girl should never ask you what your intentions are. She should never have to ask you, what exactly are your intentions with me? Because it's really unclear right now. I hope that you're proactively giving some sense of direction, how you stand and where you want to go with her consistently. And in case you don't know what this is called the DTR, define the relationship. You're also leading in the pace, which is in the pursuit, which is asking her out. You're asking her out consistently. I would love to see you again. This is what I'm thinking. And then you're following up and executing. Like that means is, hey, I had a wonderful time with you last night. I would love to know if you would like to go out on another date with me. These are the times that work for me next week. And you let me know which is best for you. And I'll get back to you with the plan in advance of what we're doing, what kind of outfit you need to wear. I can't wait to see you. This is such an honor for me to be able to take you out on another date. Like, that is pursuing her. Okay, you get to lead, and then you also get to pursue and lead in this communication, boundaries, how you guys are honoring one another. This means sexually, physically, emotionally, spiritually, you are respecting her boundaries. You're laying out your boundaries. You're curiously, compassionately asking where her boundaries are, and you guys are like consistently, loudly out in the open talking about boundaries because you want to love and honor one another. Like, this is the best way boyfriends can spiritually lead their girlfriends, is emotionally, sexually, and spiritually talking about boundaries. That needs to be its own podcast episode, but I would absolutely say how you guys do boundaries, how you communicate about them, how you plan and honor them says everything about your relationship. Speaking of which, the best way to uphold boundaries, talk about them, communicate about them, really have a clear expectation here is to invite other people in. Like, one of the best ways you can spiritually lead your girlfriend is this. You invite other people in. Please, you guys hear this all the time from Heart of Dating. Please do not submarine. Like, do the opposite. Whatever it takes, please do not submarine. One of the best practices in dating and relationship is inviting wise counsel in early. And guess what? This is the same thing in marriage. Like, the worst couples and the marriages that struggle the absolute most are the ones who are doing it alone. Please do not submarine. Especially if you guys struggle or have struggled sexually, emotionally, spiritually with boundaries or any of these things, like, this episode is for you. Please pause this episode. Hit up your best friend. Hit up your pastor that you've avoided for a while. Hit up that old accountability partner, that mentor who you're just too embarrassed, too ashamed, and just say, hey, like, please do that right now. I would love to do this well. Maybe that means I have a breakup coming up on my hands. Maybe this means we can try and work it out together. But just please let this be a moment where you are inviting someone in. Like, I think about this all the time. How do people change? Is this episode or this sermon, is it intellectually stimulating enough? Is it enough of a emotional experience where you're just moved to action? I think about how people actually change from these episodes and sermons and small groups and conferences all the time. And the thing I just cannot get away from, that I feel like it is the secret hidden answer, is inviting other people in, making it unavoidable that I'm going to see this person, they are going to be on my calendar. And because they're on my calendar, it affects the way I live my life. And I also think that the best leaders in life realize this. The best leaders I've ever been around have one thing in common. They all have the humility to admit that they cannot do it alone. The best leaders in life admit one thing: they need help. They have blind spots and they deeply need wise counsel. If this is true for pastors, if this is true for the best CEOs around us, if this is true for the best husbands that we want to be like, this is definitely true for you, and it's true for me. I need the wisest counsel in my life. I'm not built to do this alone. And then the last way, spiritually, you can lead your girlfriend. My favorite one, and this actually applies to all relationships, is this: just simply modeling the life of a Christian. Simply, the absolute best way in dating and relationship, engagement and marriage, with your family, with your coworkers, with your best friends. The best way you can spiritually lead is just simply modeling the life of Christ. Servant leadership, you are constantly looking around the room asking, who can I serve? Not who I can make happy, not codependently, take care of them so I can take care of myself. Their needs, their feelings is my responsibility. That's not what I'm talking about. Simple servant leadership. How can I love and serve those around me after I've taken care of my needs and my emotions and my feelings? How can I step into a room and affect positive, loving kindness and change? Your life independent of her spiritually will be the most effective, most powerful way to lead her spiritually in your entire life. That will inspire her to love God in her own life and submit to God way more than you could ever convince her with your words. And spiritual leadership has so much more these days of an elevation of yourself and your words and what you're doing and how you're speaking to someone than it really is an elevation of a life with Christ and Christ living through you. Spiritual leadership has everything to do with elevating Christ in you than it does elevating yourself and your ways and your habits and your words and how you're affecting someone else. The best way I could ever model someone what my Christ-like life is having Christ live in me and speak through me and come out of me. Your actions teach so much more loudly than your words in this. Your habits speak volumes and multitudes about who you are, much more than your words. And I just would love for every single man to get to a place where they are modeling such Christ likeness in their life that they find women who are falling in love, not just with them, but they're falling in love with the Jesus in your life. And that's the same in marriage. That doesn't change in marriage. And so that's just what I would say. I mean, I can close with this, ways I've seen boyfriends leading spiritually that I don't think, my op-ed here, I don't think praying together as one unit is kosher. Spiritually, I really don't, and strongly caution against using God as a way to bond. I feel that's trying to build a covenant bond before God as one unit. And you're also kind of using God to like bond with one another as a means to an end. Like you and your relationship with this girl is more important than really it is to just explore and get to know God together. And then I think my last one is this, man, if you're going deeper with each other than you are like your mentors, your best friends, your pastors, especially in the beginning, I would say like that is a major red flag. I would say it's going to feel really good. It's going to feel like you guys are bonding, and it's because you guys are going deeper with each other than you are your individual relationships, mentors, pastors, and best friends. Like that is, that is like husband and wife territory. That is supposed to be reserved for husband and wife. And you probably have a lot more issues with relationships and intimacy in your life, and you're just trying to find a fun, exciting way to fulfill that with a hinge match or a new person that you just met, and you're just doing it in all the wrong ways. So I would just say that's definitely a major place for you to stop, pause, and reset and say, why are my current relationships not going this deep and not getting this vulnerable? Like, what is going on there? And until you figure that out, I would say you're not ready, because you're just going to be going into a relationship expecting this person to be anything and everything like God for you. And you're going to have no support system. You're going to have no deep, rich friendships, pastors, mentors, or anyone to do life with. And I would just say that's a very dangerous, tough place to be. Okay. I love you guys. Have the most wonderful, blessed weekend. If you're a dude, please send this to your friends and talk about it. I wish I would have had this. Please keep the DMs coming. We love you guys, and have a blessed day. Let's go.